So, you're headed out to the middle of nowhere to give an old Texas ghost town a millennial makeover. You've got an electric car, your social media followers, and dreams of opening up a trendy new restaurant where other hipsters can come for an overpriced salad. There's just one problem. It's the giant chainsaw-wielding cannibal that already lives there, and he's about to put you on the menu. That's exactly what happens when this girl and her friends accidentally bring Leatherface out of retirement. Now he's starting to collect faces like Pokemon cards, but there's an old survivor who's out to settle the score. So we're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. This ghost town is about to get some new residents. It's been 50 years since a group of teenagers were brutally attacked at a farmhouse somewhere in Texas. The killer was never caught, but they say that he wore a mask of human skin, and the only survivor, a girl named Sally, spent her entire life waiting for revenge. One day, this girl Lila stops at a gas station on her way to the nearby town of Harlo. She's traveling with her sister Melody and their friends, who plan to buy up the abandoned buildings and turn them into a trendy new neighborhood, but that was their biggest mistake. As they're leaving the shop, the owner mentions that he's heard about their plans, and it sounds like they're already very popular with the people here in town. Not taking the hint, they're about to hit the road when Melody starts insulting one of the locals behind his back, and the man replies with some vaguely threatening comments as they pull away. They haven't even gotten that far afterwards before they're pulled over by the town sheriff, who seems a little suspicious of them at first, but Melody speaks up and mentions that her grandmother is actually from the area. With that, the sheriff sends them on their way, and it's not long before they arrive in the town. The place looks completely abandoned, but they're about to realize that they're not alone. Alright, these idiots have no idea what they're getting themselves into, and I'd give it less than 24 hours before this gentrification project turns into a death trap. You know what I mean? After all, the owner at the gas station mentioned how everyone in town was talking about their project before they even showed up, and from the sounds of things, they're not too happy about it. For all that Melody and her friends know, somebody could be even looking to stop them, and even the ones who aren't involved still might refuse to help if these outsiders end up in trouble. Now, their interaction with the sheriff seemed friendly enough, but if he's already keeping tabs on them, then that's a major red flag, because it means that he's expecting something to go wrong. So with that being said, the first thing that they need to do is stop getting into random beefs with local gun-toting people. I'm not saying anyone has to change their opinions. They just need to realize that right now they're fresh meat in an environment that they don't understand. So it's better to blend in and respect the community until you've learned their ways. And speaking of things that they don't understand, it seems like they haven't done even the slightest bit of research into this town before showing up. The gas station is literally selling merch about a famous massacre that happened just a few miles away. And yet, when Lila and Melody get there, it's like they're hearing about this for the first time. That's like building an Airbnb on Amity Island without knowing about the damn shark from Jaws. And I'd imagine it's something you'd want to clear up with investors before you start asking them to dump funds into your hipster commune pipe dream, am I right? Just to show you how dumb these four really are, the first businesses that they talked about opening were a restaurant, an art gallery, and a damn comic book store. Yeah, no mention of a water supply, electrical grid, sewer system, or emergency services, because apparently they're gonna start dropping people in like The Sims and hope that it all works out. Well, if they had any clue what the hell they were doing, they'd listen to the locals and go back to Austin, like pronto, but for now it looks like they'll be learning their lesson on the wrong end of a chainsaw. Excited, the group gets out and starts having a look around, imagining all of the utterly useless businesses that they can open here in town. That's when somebody comes out of the mechanic shop and they realize that it's the same guy from back at the gas station. The man introduces himself as Richter, and it turns out that he's the contractor who's helping them fix the place up. Surprisingly enough, he's the one who's suspicious of them, saying how they kinda look like a cult, but as long as he gets his money, he doesn't really care what they do. Down the street, Lila notices a Confederate flag hanging from one of the buildings, and Dante rushes inside to take it down before the investors show up. The place is actually the town's old orphanage, and while Dante heads upstairs to get the flag, Melody notices an old photograph from back in the 70s, where there's a giant kid standing in the background with his face hidden by the shadows. Just then, then this random old guy appears at the end of the hallway and starts asking what they're doing in her house. She's clearly confused about the entire situation, and following her to the kitchen, Melody tries finding a gentle way to break the news. According to her, they bought the property from the bank, but according to Ginny here, she still owns the building. Both sides are convinced they're right, and frustrated, Dante storms outside, saying how he's going to let the sheriff sort it out. The woman starts getting more and more panicked as Melody explains that she needs to move out, and hearing the commotion, a giant man appears in the shadows at the top of the stairs. Worried, Ginny tells him that everything's fine, but that's when the sheriff shows up to kick them out. Suddenly, the woman collapses from a heart attack as she's overcome by the stress, and the mysterious figure from upstairs carries her out to the sheriff's van. At the same time, they see a bus full of investors pulling onto the street, and for some reason, Dante's girlfriend Ruth decides to go with them to the hospital while the others stay back for the sales pitch. Traumatized, Lila says that she's had enough, insisting that what just happened is a bad sign, but her sister refuses to see things from her perspective. It turns into a fight that ends with Lila storming off on her own, but Melody has to get back to mingling with the investors. Meanwhile, Ruth and the others are on their way to the hospital when the old woman finally dies in the big guy's arms. The deputy reaches over to calm him down, but the man starts refusing to let him go, and when he reaches for the blicky, he suddenly snaps his wrist like a toothpick and stabs him straight in the neck with his own broken bones. As they struggle for the weapon, a shot goes off and hits the sheriff in the neck, causing him to veer off of the road and go barreling through a field until they crash straight into a tractor. Alright, well, good job, guys. You just killed Leatherface's mom. I mean, I'm pretty sure she wasn't technically his mom, but I don't think that's gonna make him feel any better. As a matter of fact, the only thing that will is removing your faces from your faces. So that's how you know that you just up. Like, I guess I shouldn't be surprised that you just walked in like you owned the place, considering that's what you've been doing ever since you came to town. I mean, it makes sense why you weren't expecting anyone to be inside, but if you'd taken just a quick look around, there were signs all over the place that somebody still lived there. So you might want to give a casual hello before walking in, just in case there are any creepy old ladies or giant cannibals waiting to come out of the woodwork. But whether you thought you owned the place or not, there was no reason to sit there arguing with a delusional grandma on an oxygen tank. I mean, next time just go get the sheriff and let him sort it out peacefully, because a confused old lady will probably listen to somebody she knows before she trusts two random strangers trying to kick her out of the house. But you just had to keep pushing until you gave Grandma here a heart attack in front of her cannibalistic adopted son, and if you thought he was crazy before, just wait until you see what happens now that the only person who he ever loved just died in his arms. And as if you didn't make things bad enough already, you decided to send Ruth along to the hospital for what reason exactly? I mean, she's an entrepreneur, not an EMT, so she's only going to get in the way. If you really wanted to be helpful, then you should have just left these poor people alone, because I'm pretty sure that the last person she'd want to see is one of the entitled idiots who put her in the hospital in the first place. But it looks like you just brought Leatherface out of retirement, so there's only one thing left to say. Congratulations, idiots, because you just up. Alright, so there are some serious life changes afoot here, and I guess we can all relate to that, right? They say life changes lead to identity changes, and brother, I couldn't agree more. Let me tell you guys a little secret. I never intended to be a YouTube host. Nope, never. And yet, here I am. Through a series of hilarious events, I met some people who would change my life, and now I'm here. And while I absolutely love what I do, I never knew how much this career change and being so public could affect my mental health. I mean, this can be stressful, you guys. I don't know if you know this, but a lot goes into making these videos. But I wasn't alone, and you don't need to be either, thanks to today's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp can set you up with a therapist who will listen, ask questions, and help you see things in a new light, and give you advice on how to make positive changes in your life. To get started, you easily fill out a simple questionnaire, and you'll get matched with a therapist in as little as a few days. Once you meet your new therapist, if it isn't the right fit, then you could easily switch to a new one at no extra charge. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.3 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform that you can trust. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/howtobeatyt and get 10% off your first month of therapy. Thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video, and with that, back to the show. Back in town, Melody is busy auctioning off the different buildings when she notices Lila wandering away from the crowd. The girl decides to go visit Richter at his shop, and while there, she notices that he has a rifle sitting on the table. He asks if she's ever fired one before, and she explains that she was injured in a public attack that left her traumatized for life. She's been living with survivor's guilt ever since, and it makes her feel pressured to do something meaningful with her life in honor of her friends who never got the chance. The others are busy wrapping up at the auction when Melody gets a text from Ruth saying how the old lady did not make it. Dante doesn't see it as their fault, but Melody here has officially had enough, and she says that she's going to get Lila so the two of them can get out of here. Finding her at the mechanic shop, she explains what happened to the old woman, and the girls both agree that they need to get the hell out of there, but Richter overhears them as they're on their way out. Meanwhile, Ruth wakes up in the passenger seat of the van, but when she looks into the back, the giant man and the old woman are already gone. That's when she hears something outside, and looking in the mirror, she's horrified to see the man crouching over the old lady's body as he's peeling the skin off of her face. Holy shit. It turns out that he's the same violent psychopath who attacked those teenagers 50 years ago, and completely terrified, she reaches for the radio to try calling for help. Worried that he's gonna hear, she whispers into the radio, desperately hoping that somebody is gonna respond, but it seems like no one is out there to hear the call. Horrified, she watches as the man holds the woman's face up to the sunlight before placing it over his own like he's wearing a mask. At the gas station, the owner's taking out the trash when he happens to hear her voice on the radio, but by then it's already too late. Just then, the sheriff wakes up and starts gurgling on his own blood. Ruth tries to quiet him down, but that's when Leatherface suddenly appears in the window and starts beating the man to death using the old woman's oxygen tank. Terrified, she tries to play dead until he moves on, but when she reaches for the handle, she realizes that her door is jammed. She can't roll down the window either, meaning the only way out is over the sheriff's body, but just as she's about to climb out of the van, Leatherface smashes through the glass and grabs her by the throat. Panicking, the girl tries her best to fight back, but there's nothing she can do as he uses a broken piece of metal to slice open her stomach before stumbling through the fields as he makes his way back towards the town. Alright, well, I guess this trip to the hospital just turned into a trip to the graveyard. Ruth here didn't really put up much of a fight, but she had plenty of chances to do something before Leatherface spilled her guts all over the passenger seat. Like, before the crash even happened, she missed her chance to escape by executing a tactical roll out of the van. Jumping out of a moving van is always going to be incredibly risky, but with Leatherface already going on a rampage, it was better to get away as quickly as possible than to stick around until after the crash. As soon as they swerved into the field, Ruth should have opened the door and dove out at a 45-degree angle to minimize the speed of her body versus the ground. As long as she kept her arms in, knees bent, and tucked her head to protect her neck, she could have hit the ground rolling to reduce the chances of like a major injury, giving her the chance to get out of there before Leatherface was back on his feet. Now, using the radio to call for help was actually a pretty great idea, but the problem was that she tried to whisper instead of speaking clearly. She did this because she was afraid that Leatherface might hear, but with the guy literally defacing his mother's own body, playing dead was never a guarantee in the first place. It would have been better to risk a clear, urgent message explaining who she is, where she is, and that 2 officers have already been killed. Then at least there would be a chance of somebody actually responding, and she'd only have to survive until help arrived. But her worst mistake was completely ignoring the fact that she had a gun sitting right there on the sheriff's belt. If she'd just reached over and grabbed it, she could have waited for Leatherface to come back and then simply blasted him as soon as he got close. The only problem would be if she didn't know how to use it, and if that's the case, then the only choice left was to run. She decided to try this eventually, but she waited too long to make her move, when instead what she should have done was commit to a fast escape as soon as Leatherface was out of view. Like, he may be freakishly strong, but he's still an old man in his 70s, which means that he's not exactly built for speed, so the moment that he was gone, she needed to dive out of the van and take off at a dead sprint through the fields, using the sunflowers for cover as she made her escape. Back in Harlo, the others are busy throwing a big party for their investors when Melody says that she is leaving. Disappointed, Dante throws her the keys to the car, but the mechanic snatches them out of the air and takes the keys to the bus as well, refusing to let anyone leave until they can show him the deed to the old woman's house. That should be easy enough if Dante was telling the truth, but when they go to look through her files, he can't find any proof that they really own the property. He swears that it must be back at the office, but that's when Lila points out that it could be inside the house instead, and frustrated, Melody makes her stay on the bus while the two of them go to check it out. At the gas station, the owner gets on the phone with Sally Hardesty, the only survivor of the 1973 attacks, warning her that Leatherface is back. Without wasting a minute, she grabs her shotgun and heads off to Harlo, determined to kill this creep before she loses him again. At the orphanage, Melody goes upstairs to the woman's bedroom where she finds the deed locked inside of a small wooden box. Devastated, she realizes that they don't own the place after all, and that's when she hears footsteps coming from somewhere in the house. Dante hears it as well, and following the sounds to the kitchen, he jumps back when he sees a horrifying reflection in one of the hanging pans, revealing that Leatherface is already right behind him. Terrified, he tries to run to the door, but Leatherface pulls him back and slices him with a giant cleaver, before letting him fall back into the hallway with blood spilling out of the wound. Hearing the fight, Melody stands there in shock when she sees the killer crouching over her friend's body, but when he looks up, she's already disappeared back into the old woman's bedroom. It isn't long before Leatherface follows her in and starts checking the room, but just when it seems like he's about to find her, he takes the old woman's dress out of the closet and starts crying in front of the mirror. That's when he hears the other investigators still partying outside, and furious, he starts throwing furniture around the room in a fit of rage. All Melody can do is wait until he's gone, but while outside, a big storm rolls in and forces the investors to take shelter on the bus. Alright, well, it looks like Dante's restaurant is already going out of business, and the only thing on the menu tonight is chainsaw grease with a side of human flesh. Now, you might think that they'd have no time to suspect that Leatherface or anybody else could be lurking inside, but there's one key detail that should have tipped them off. After the incident with the old lady, everyone left in such a hurry that they never shut the front door. Dope! But when they came back, the door was closed, so if they didn't do it, then who did? It's an important question to ask because it turns out that the answer was a 6.5-foot tall cannibal who wanted to claim their faces like PlayStation trophies. But if they'd only caught this sooner, then they might have had a chance to make some better decisions instead of walking straight into a death trap. Like, come on, guy! But yeah, speaking of bad decisions, this should be obvious, but you never want to run towards the guy who's trying to kill you. And when it comes to Dante's fight in the kitchen, he actually had some room to work with before Leatherface closed the gap. Instead of blindly running for the door, he should have backed up and positioned himself behind the island block, using it as a barrier to create more space, you know? And while doing that, he could have also grabbed one of those frying pans and either thrown it or used it to fight the guy off if he got close. Then I would have gone for the white door at the back of the room. We're not really sure where the hell it leads, but it's better than trying to run straight past him when those are the only two options. As for Melody, she already knew that the floorboards in the place are creaky as hell, which means that she's gonna have a hard time sneaking out without being noticed. But Leatherface's actions just before this gave me an idea. Like, before leaving, she should have put on one of the old lady's dresses and wrapped a shawl around her head to hide the difference in her hair. Then grab anything that she could have used as a weapon and started sneaking towards the steps as quietly as she could. I mean, if the floorboards were gonna give her away and be all squeaky, that's when her disguise comes in. With any luck, it might fool Leatherface into thinking that she is the old woman, or at least confuse him long enough for her to get the hell out of there. Then once she gets outside, she needs to go straight for Richter's shop, get the keys, and get the out of town before he strikes again. There's nothing that Melody can do to get the others' attention, and hearing Leatherface coming back, her only choice is to quickly hide under the old woman's bed. While she lies there terrified, he takes a sledgehammer and starts smashing through the wall like John Wick coming out of retirement. Except instead of an arsenal of weapons, he only needs one. Downstairs, Dante suddenly wakes up and manages to stumble outside while the killer's distracted. A moment later, the mechanic sees him walking by and goes to check on him, only to find that he's been horrifically injured. The investor, Catherine, also stumbles upon the scene, and they're both shocked as Dante finally dies from his injuries. Taking out his pistol, the mechanic tells her to get everyone on the bus while he goes to find out what happened. Going to the orphanage, he starts nervously making his way inside when he notices blood all over the floor. Meanwhile, upstairs, Leatherface finally finishes making his hole in the wall and reaches inside to grab his favorite chainsaw, just like back in the day. Hearing him, Richter creeps up the stairs as the cannibal starts revving up his weapon, but hearing the creaking floorboards, he quickly ducks behind the door just as the mechanic gets to the room. Seeing that he's about to be ambushed, Melody uses her foot to turn a nearby mirror, revealing the killer's hiding place just in the nick of time, and giving Richter a chance to dodge it as he starts swinging at him with the sledgehammer. Caught off guard, he tries his best to fight back, but Leatherface smacks the weapon out of his hands before brutally shattering his leg with a single hit. Refusing to give up, Richter tackles him back into the window, but Leatherface pushes his neck straight into a broken piece of glass, causing him to hit the floor as blood starts gushing out of his neck. Just before he he dies. He takes out the keys and gives them to Melody, but Leatherface catches up and smashes his skull into a bloody pulp with the hammer. Okay, well, thanks a lot, Melody. Awful nice of you to lend a helping hand here. I mean, I was downright impressed when you used that mirror to show where Leatherface was hiding, but it seems like you used up your last 2 brain cells just to come up with that part of the plan. Now, if there's one person who actually deserved to survive this, it was definitely Richter here. After seeing that Dante had been attacked, he immediately took out his weapon, kept it ready when he got inside, and started quietly searching the house instead of giving himself away like most people would. Honestly, 0 notes. That's textbook survival right there. And if it hadn't been for those freaking squeaky floorboards, he would have caught Leatherface off guard and possibly won the fight before it even started. Even after getting ambushed, the guy still managed to put up one hell of a fight, but since Melody didn't even lift a finger to help, Leatherface eventually wore him down, and the worst part was, his pistol was right there, so all Melody would have had to do was grab it and put one in Leatherface's dome while the mechanic was keeping him busy. But instead, she decided to do absolutely nothing while the poor guy was fighting for his motherfucking life. Like, come the on, you idiot. You're never gonna get a better chance than when he's outnumbered and pinned up against a wall, so it's better to work together while you have the chance instead of letting him win the battle and go back on the hunt. But on the bright side, it seems like Leatherface did not bother to take the keys or the pistol when he left the room, and if that's the case, then Melody's job could not have been easier. All she needs to do is wait until the coast is clear, grab the keys, the blicky, and get the out of there before the big guy comes back. I mean, there's no need to waste time with stealth if she has a weapon. Just make a break for the street, find her sister, and use the bus full of unaware investors as meat shields as they hop in their car and hit the road. Sometime after dark, Sally arrives at the crash site and gets out to look around. There's no sign of her old buddy Leatherface anywhere, but the various dead bodies are proof that he can't be far away. And in the field, just a few feet from the accident, she finds the old woman's body propped up like a scarecrow with her face completely peeled off. The sight leaves Sally badly shaken up, but going back to her truck, she looks at a picture of her old friends to give her the motivation that she needs to keep going. After a while, Lila starts to worry when her sister hasn't come back, but the investor tries to stop her from getting off of the bus. She tries to warn her that it's not safe out there, but when she refuses to explain what the hell she's talking about, Lila ducks under her arm and heads back to the orphanage in search of the others. And it's not long before she spots Dante's body slumped in a doorway just down the street, and worried, she realizes that something is going horribly wrong. Back inside, her sister waits until the coast is clear before reaching for the keys and crawls out from underneath the bed as she starts sneaking downstairs. She can't take the direct path without setting off some squeaky floorboards, so instead she decides to climb right over the railing and lower herself down. It's a pretty decent idea, but she ends up making way too much noise anyway, and when she looks up, she's horrified to see Leatherface watching her from the top of the steps. Just then, he pulls back and throws the hammer into her chest, sending her flying backwards as her body crashes straight through the floor. But she's not dead yet, which is when he starts coming after her with the chainsaw, forcing Melody to start scrambling through the crawl space in search of a way out. She notices a hatch where it looks like she can get through, but before she's able to reach it, Leatherface sticks his chainsaw through the floor right above her head. Terrified, she crawls back into a corner and tries to hide, instead holding her breath as he walks back and forth right above her. Just then, her sister shows up and starts calling out for her, causing Melody to let out an involuntary gasp that gives her away. That's when Leatherface jams the chainsaw back through the floor and starts pulling it along the ground as Melody scrambles to avoid the blade. And at the very last second, she's saved when he cuts into a sewage pipe, covering her entire body in the disgusting brown slime. Lila finds the opening and helps her sister escape, but hearing what they're up to, Leatherface, yeah, he's not that far behind. Alright, I haven't seen an escape attempt that since the Shawshank Redemption. It seems like Leatherface isn't the only one with almost superhuman powers, because Melody here just took an absolute missile straight to the chest and shrugged it off like it was no big deal. Maybe all this trauma went straight to her brain, because everything that she did from that point on was completely idiotic. Like, going for the vent was a good idea, sure, but why completely give up on it the moment that he stuck his chainsaw through the floor? Like, obviously hiding isn't gonna work as long as he knows that you're still down there, and she could have easily made it to another level or another exit before he found her for the second time. But somehow it gets even worse, because this moron actually thought it would be a good idea to start crawling away in a straight line. Like, this actually is so dumb that it hurts, because it should be obvious that chainsaws can't curve, so when you need to get out of the way, then all you have to do is roll to the side, Dark Souls style. Now, it's a good thing she ended up getting help from her sister because the strategy that she was using was never gonna work. After finally reaching one of the vents, she tried pushing it with her arms while lying flat on her stomach, but the body mechanics of this they're just terrible, dude. The average person can generate way more force with their legs than they can with their arms, so the better strat here would have been to lie flat on her back with her feet pressed against the vent and knock it out with one strong kick, saving her a lot of time and possibly making the difference between life or death. They're not the only ones making things harder than they should be. I mean, Sally here just came across a crime scene with 4 dead bodies, including 2 officers, but it still looks like she's going solo. Thing is, Sally's not just a random civilian, she's a Texas Ranger with access to backup, so there really should be absolutely no reason why she hasn't called in for backup yet. And anyway, now that the girls have the keys, they can just make a break for the bus and get the hell out of town. And that's exactly what they're about to try, but Leatherface, yeah, he ain't gonna be letting them get out of here so soon. The girls get to the street and make a beeline straight for the bus, throwing the driver the keys and saying that they need to get the out of there. Taking their advice, he throws it in gear and hits the gas, but before they can get very far, Leatherface catches up and starts attacking the bus with his chainsaw. For some reason, the moronic driver decides that he needs to go outside and see what happened, but he hasn't been gone for more than a few seconds when Leatherface throws his severed head back through the door. Seeing him coming, Catherine is so horrified that she can barely speak as she goes to the back of the bus and whispers for the others to run. That's when Leatherface shows up to crash the party, and in a moment of unbelievable stupidity, they all whip out their phones as if that's going to scare him. But he just starts killing them live on camera in front of all their followers. The place descends into sheer panic as he starts brutally tearing them apart one after another in a scene that can only be described as metal as and Lila is forced to use these idiotic investors as meat shields so she won't be next. She has a flashback to the time that she almost died, but it inspires her to resist the panic and start to run. Helping her up, Melody leads her into the restroom while Leatherface keeps massacring so many investors that a huge pool of blood comes flowing under the door. Looking up, they realize that they can escape through the skylight, so the two of them start rushing to get it open before it's too late. But at the same time, Catherine starts trying to escape through one of the windows, but he catches her and cuts her in half before she can get out. While in the restroom, the sisters are just starting to climb up onto the roof. Lila gets up there first, but before Melody can follow, Leatherface jams his chainsaw through the door and starts trying to get inside. It only takes a second before he cuts a hole big enough to reach through, but as he's trying to mess with the lock, Melody takes her chainsaw-themed corkscrew and jabs him straight through the arm, briefly forcing him back. This gives her just enough time to climb out, but Leatherface sees what they're doing and quickly falls back to come up with a new plan. Stumbling down the road, they're relieved when they see an SUV come flying around the corner. It's Sally, but instead of helping them escape, she waits until they're inside before locking the doors, deciding to use them as bait so she can stop Leatherface once and for all. Okay. Yeah, that ain't good. But at least they're not one of the idiots who got turned into a giant pile of human body parts back on the bus, so I guess things could always be worse. Now, Melody and Lila had the right idea by running straight to the back of the group. I mean, this is exactly the type of moment when you want to use the crowd as meat shields. And it's pretty much the only reason why the two of them are still alive. But as for the others, some of them probably could have survived if they weren't so stupid. I mean, recording him won't do anything besides get your final moments caught on camera, but I can think of at least 3 ways that their phone addictions could have actually come in handy. Follow me here. First, the people in front could have used their phone lights to shine at his eyes. It's not exactly a flashbang grenade, but it might have been enough to mess with his vision. Meanwhile, people in the back should have been calling the damn police. Even though they'd never get there in time, at least they'd know that somebody was coming if any of them managed to survive. And as a last resort, a phone can always become a weapon if you throw it as hard as you can. Nokia bricks, I'm looking at you. And a good shot straight to the dome could be enough to create an opening, allowing you to slip past him or even go for a counterattack. And speaking of a counterattack, there was really no good reason, besides being completely terrified, why they couldn't give fighting back a try. I mean, they had him outnumbered 24-1. Even if he had a chainsaw, it was a battle that they could have won, right? You know what I mean? They'd want to start by pelting him with bottles, cans, and whatever the hell else they could grab. The people in front would have to dodge his swing, then quickly dogpile in, wrapping around his arms and legs and overwhelming him with sheer numbers. While they had him held down, the others would take corkscrews, broken bottles, anything blunt or sharp, and go for the kill shot. Bonus points if they can get his chainsaw and use it against him. Now, as for the girls, they should have been home free if it wasn't for crazy old Sally here deciding to use them as live bait. But now it looks like they'll have to wait here and hope for the best. Leaving the girls in the truck, Sally notices a light in the old orphanage and decides to go check it out. Approaching the bedroom, she cautiously pushes her way inside, only to find Leatherface sitting there completely defenseless. But before she takes the shot, she wants to make sure that he sees her face. Ordering him to turn around, she realizes that the man doesn't even remember who she is, and confused, she hesitates for just a moment before pulling the trigger, letting him turn and walk away without even trying to stop him. Over back in the truck, Lila's guilt starts hitting her even worse, making her feel like death is coming back to punish her for just surviving. Melody starts to promise that she won't let anything bad happen when suddenly Leatherface says, "Hey, you sure about that, homegirl?" Freaking the out, the girls struggle to get away as he reaches into the truck and starts pulling Lila out by her leg. But just when he's about to chop her foot off, Sally fires her shotgun and hits him straight in the shoulder. Laughing, she tells the freak that he's as good as dead as she loads another shell, but he dodges the shot just in time. Now, by the time that she catches up, the creep has already disappeared down the alley, and she throws the girls keys to her truck, telling them to get out of there before he comes back. That's when they hear the chainsaw revving from somewhere in the darkness, and walking towards the noise, Sally aims her shotgun down the alley as the girls start the truck. That's when Leatherface comes sprinting towards her out of the shadows, blocking one of the shots with his chainsaw as he closes the distance. Grabbing the weapon, he makes it so that she can't use the pump to load another shell. Thinking quickly, Sally pulls a knife from behind her back and stabs him in the side, but without so much as flinching, he takes the chainsaw and plunges it all the way through her stomach. Seeing this, the girls hit the gas and floor it right for him, but he launches the chainsaw at the windshield and dives out of the way just in time, which causes them to crash straight into the mechanic's shop. Alright, remember when I said things could always be wuss? Well, it looks like we've officially reached that point. Now, for the lady who was supposed to show up and save the day, Sally's plan here absolutely sucked. I mean, even if she was using them as bait, leaving the girls in the truck while she went off to check the building just doesn't make any sense. Instead, the very first thing that she should have done here was call for some damn backup already. Then take the truck and drive it to a safer location somewhere nearby, leaving the girls with keys and a weapon and telling them to go for help at the first sign of trouble. Also, when you get the bad guy in your sights, please just do the world a favor and take the damn shot. And if you think he's hiding down a dark alley, don't start walking closer, stay the back. Shotguns work best from a distance, genius, and putting yourself in chainsaw range, it's not a good idea. Not at all. When he finally caught her, she still had one last chance to end the fight before getting turned into a human shish kebab. Either use the knife, but aim for his head or neck instead, or roll backwards and pull out her pistol to blast him. But now it looks like her final girling days are over. Yikes. RIP though. And as for the girls, it was already too late to save the old lady, so instead of just risking it, they really should have just put the truck in reverse and hit the road. The good news is they still have their electric car, but they'll need to be careful because if Leatherface sees them going for it, he might destroy it and leave them completely trapped. So assuming they both survived, what they need to do now is set up an ambush. While one of them waits by the wreck as a distraction, the other grabs something heavy and waits for him to take the bait. Then while he's distracted, they sneak up from behind and give him a whack in the head, giving them a chance to either grab his chainsaw and confirm the kill, or get up out of there before he gets up. Lucky to be alive, Lila regains consciousness only to realize that her sister has a piece of metal jammed through her leg. Convinced that she is about to die, Melody tells her to get out of there while she still has the chance. But just as Leatherface is starting to chop her up, Lila calls his attention from the other side of the garage. But when she pulls the trigger, nothing happens. And turning around, the girl takes off running as Leatherface starts chasing her down the street. She doesn't even make it that far before the psycho catches up, knocking the rifle out of her hands as she trips and falls to the ground. But just as he's about to strike again, Sally fires another shot that hits him right in the back. The hit manages to scare him away as he retreats into the abandoned movie theater, but the old woman calls Lila over as she's running back to the garage, warning the girl that she's gonna regret it if she runs, and handing her the shotgun as she finally dies from her injuries. Realizing that she's right, Lila takes the weapon and turns back to face her fears as she follows Leatherface into the movie theater. That's when Leatherface jumps out from behind a plastic curtain and tackles her straight into the huge flooded pit in the middle of the room. For a moment, everything goes quiet as he drags the girl underwater until finally she fights her way back to the surface and starts trying to pull herself up. Just when it looks like she escaped, Leatherface comes flying out of the water and starts dragging her back towards the pit. She manages to kick him away, but while Lila goes for the shotgun, he picks up the chainsaw and flings it across the floor, hitting her straight in the back of the leg. Now injured, she keeps crawling for the weapon, but before she can reach it, the maniac kicks it away. It looks like she's officially done for, but rolling over, she's surprised to see her sister jumping onto the man's back. It only takes him a second to throw her off, but before he can deal the killing blow, Lila steps in between them and hits him twice with the shotgun, forcing him back to the edge of the pool. The girl runs out of ammo before she can finish the job, but Melody picks up the chainsaw and swings it up to his chin, slicing him across the face as he tumbles backwards into the water. Convinced that they got him, the girls watch as the killer's body slowly sinks beneath the surface. Outside, Lila finds Sally's hat lying in the road next to an old picture of the woman's friends and puts it on as she and her sister get in the car. Breathing a sigh of relief, they set the autopilot to take them home, but as they're slowly pulling away at approximately 1 mile per hour, Leatherface suddenly crashes through the window and drags Melody out of the car. Horrified, there's nothing that Lila can do but watch as he takes the chainsaw and cuts off her head with one effortless chop, holding it up and waving goodbye as the autopilot drags her away. As Leatherface returns to the house where it all began, and it looks like Lila here has learned a very valuable lesson. Next time, just drive the damn car yourself. Yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. You know, when you got an infinite budget like Netflix has, and you come up with a movie or an entry in a series just like this one that's just so painfully average, just middle of the road, I think all the hate stems from the fact that people wanted more out of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequel, especially a modern horror movie, and this is just kind of what we got. But, you know, whatever. That bus scene, instant classic. When he was tearing the kids up with the cell phones, holy shit, that was amazing. But you gotta let me know down in the comments if you guys would have done anything differently in today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the guy. We'll see you in the next video, and have a damn good day.